Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It's our health unit, and we're going to be talking about sleep. Oh, how much sleep do you get? And do you get enough? Most people I know would like to have a lot more sleep time. I was laughing the other day because a holiday was coming up, and I asked one of my friends, what are you doing for the holiday? 睡觉.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Yeah.
Here in Taiwan, everybody's like, oh, I'm just going to sleep. Usually, at least in America, when I was hanging out there, if you had a holiday, you were out playing. You're out doing something fun. You certainly weren't wasting the time sleeping. But I think sleep is a very favorite pastime here, which I understand. I don't get enough sleep. I don't sleep well. I would like to have more sleep. But since I don't have quality sleep, it doesn't matter how much sleep I get. Do you sleep well, Tom?
Not as well as I used to. I always have to wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
This happens as you get older. But in the past, I could sleep about till 5 or 6 in the morning, and then I could get up. I remember back in high school and college, it was very easy to sleep until 9 or 10 on Saturday or Sunday morning.
I never could.
But after a certain age, that became difficult. And, basically, I'm up at the crack of dawn pretty much. But I go to bed earlier as well. Some people stay up till 1 or 2 at night because they're on their computers or they're still pawing on their phones or whatever. But I pretty much try to get to bed by 11 so I can have a good night's sleep. But those are something we could discuss at another time, those topics or that particular topic. But we're actually talking about something called biphasic sleep, which means in the past, people actually slept in 2 shifts, basically, at night. They slept for about 4 hours, they woke up for another hour, and then they went back to sleep. We'll talk about what this is all about right now. So let's read through the entire article, and then we'll come back to discuss it.
The pursuit of a good night's sleep has preoccupied most people at one point or another. For those who suffer from insomnia, it's a more acute concern than for others who just hope to fight off afternoon fatigue. A historian named Roger E. Kirch has good news for both camps, though. Human sleep has changed over time. While researching a book about nighttime, he stumbled across court records referencing first sleep. Through extensive searching of these records and other official documents, as well as popular literature and songs of the past, he learned that humans in the pre-industrial world tended to sleep for a few hours once night fell, and then wake up for approximately an hour before returning to sleep. Biphasic sleep, as the process is called, appears to have been widespread. E. Kirch found references to the phenomenon across Europe, as well as in accounts from South America and the Middle East. The period in between rests was a time for duty or reflection, depending on one's means. Peasants would check on their animals, while nobles might read or write until sleep overtook them again. Biphasic sleep was known as far back as ancient Greece, based on a reference in the renowned poem The Odyssey. However, it faded as the Industrial Revolution took hold. Not only did artificial lighting begin to spread, but attitudes towards sleep also changed. When people were sleeping, they couldn't be exploited in factories, so sleeping too much provoked accusations of laziness and time wasting. Today, we must be alert to the false belief that waking up early guarantees productivity, and that waking up in the middle of the night condemns you to exhaustion. When insomnia strikes, comfort yourself with the thought that you're in touch with ancient human practices for the night, and occupy yourself quietly until sleep returns.
Okay, it's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson. Again, it's our health unit. And we're talking about people being awake after midnight Well, maybe you seek biphasic sleep. Okay, that's a new word for us, biphasic. By looking at the word, I can probably pretty much tell what it means. A phase is just like a step of something or a stage in a series of steps. So if it's biphasic, basically it involves two phases or two sections. So yeah, maybe you're looking for that kind of sleep. And yes, indeed, you might be awake after midnight like a lot of people are. What time do you usually get to bed, Stephanie?
About 11.
About 11, okay.
Yeah.
So you're kind of an early sleeper.
Yeah.
I think most people stay up until 12 or even later. Of course, my wife and daughter are always up past midnight. There's always something to look at on the internet or whatever. And I think that's true of a lot of people out there. They probably stay up a lot later than they should.
I can't sleep late, so if I don't get to bed, at least I have to be lying in bed by 11. That doesn't mean I'm asleep. If I don't try, there's no hope because I'm always up when the light comes up.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe you're attuned to natural rhythms in the world, but we've got artificial light these days, but we'll get to that later on. Let's take a look at the first paragraph here. We're talking about the pursuit of a good night's sleep, and that has preoccupied most people at one point or another. So, of course, we always say this, get a good night's sleep, or our parents used to say that, sleep tight, sweet dreams, or whatever. So, of course, we all want to have a good night's sleep. And of course, we're calling it a pursuit, which means we're going after that sort of thing as something we're interested in learning more about, or we're trying to achieve that thing. There are lots of pursuits in life. You might like music or art or whatever, so that might be a pursuit in your life. But in this particular case, people are trying to get a good night's sleep.
They sure are. So it says here that this pursuit has preoccupied most people at one point or another. If you're preoccupied with something, it means you're really spending a lot of time thinking about something or someone so that it's hard to even focus on anything else. You're so preoccupied with that one thing. And a lot of people find it difficult to get a good night's sleep. So they're always thinking about it. Oh, what else can I do? I think sometimes you can get so stressed out about not getting a good night's sleep that hurts you trying to get some sleep. So, yeah, maybe try not to worry about it so much. I have heard lately a lot of good advice where if you're not sleeping, just get up and read or do something until you do feel sleepy. Don't waste the time because it gets even worse if you feel like, oh, I gotta sleep. For those who suffer from insomnia, it's a more acute concern than for others who just hope to fight off afternoon fatigue or that sleepiness that overcomes you in the afternoon. I hate that. Insomnia is someone who can't sleep very well, but it becomes a habit. So it's kind of a mess. So, it gets worse and worse over time. You really need to go and see a doctor if it's really bad for you. Taking sleeping pills isn't very helpful, guys, long term especially. So maybe go and talk to a doctor about that. Sleeping is the way our body repairs itself. So if you're not getting sleep, you're damaging your body too.
Right, so of course, if you suffer from insomnia, it might be an acute concern for you. If something's acute, it is serious, it's very bad, it's present, it's very difficult to get rid of, it's a problem you need to face. So it's an acute concern. And yes, indeed, if you get a good night's sleep, then maybe you won't get so tired in the afternoon when you're working. But I've also found or discovered that here in Taiwan, you've got this great tradition of the afternoon nap. You go and have lunch, and then you kind of doze off for about 20 minutes or so. And most Americans don't do that.
No.
And when I came here, of course, I thought that was weird, unusual. But when I actually tried it, I found that it is actually quite effective. And indeed, I try to get a nap every day, basically, if I can. And again, though, we do have this problem with working in the afternoon, and maybe around 3 p.m. or 4, you're just so tired. You just can't keep your eyes open. You can't wait to get off work and get something to eat. So indeed, if you want to get a good night's sleep, it might be a way to fight off being tired in the afternoon.
It's funny. I felt the same way my first time to Taiwan. I couldn't believe when I walked into a bank at noon, everyone had their head on their desk, and I thought, what is going on? I had never heard of such a thing. My dad must be sort of part Taiwanese because he would take naps. I remember this. He could sit up straight in his chair in his law office, and he would just close his eyes and take his cat nap, his power nap for 15 minutes, and that would do it for him. He only slept 4 hours a night, though. But I still can't do those quick afternoon naps like they really like here. But I think it's great if you can because it does give you more energy for the afternoon for sure. And you don't have to drink so much coffee to keep yourself awake. So let's get back to the article. We've got a historian here. And actually, this article is based on his research. I looked at his name and I thought, well, that's got to be Eckhart, or, that was a guess. But like we always say on these programs, especially with names from America, never assume you know how to pronounce it. It's somebody's name, so they can tell you to pronounce it in any wacky way they want to. It's their name. And he pronounces his name Eckhart. I looked him up online, and he was being interviewed on a news program. So he has good news for people who have insomnia or just, have trouble fighting off that afternoon fatigue or the tiredness that comes over you.
Right, and he's got good news for both types of people, both camps. Human sleep has changed over time, and while researching a book about nighttime, he stumbled across court records referencing first sleep. So court records, of course, are records taken during trials, and they're stored away in law libraries all around the world, and he did some research. And some of these documents made references to first sleep. What the heck is that? He wanted to know. And through extensive searching of these records and other official documents, as well as popular literature and songs of the past, he learned that humans in the pre-industrial world tended to sleep for a few hours once night fell, and then they would wake up for approximately an hour before returning to sleep. So I guess you've got first sleep and second sleep. If you wake up in the middle of the night and do stuff for an hour and then go back to sleep, then you've got biphasic sleep. We should talk about this word extensive here, which means it's been very thorough. He's checked out a lot of records and found lots and lots of records to back this up.
He did. That would have been an interesting research job to get. Anyway, we're going to go on and learn more about this. But first, guys, we're going to take a quick break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是派老师。今天讲解的是夏季刊 Unit 6 Awake After Midnight. Maybe you seek biphasic sleep. 这是一篇篇章结构的练习题，内容关于半夜醒来。如果大家睡到一半醒过来，没办法再入睡，会不会觉得很烦恼？文章告诉我们，这在古代其实很正常。好，我们先一起解题吧。在开始解篇章结构的题目之前，老师想要再一次的提醒大家，答疑题前请先看一下4个选项，心中留下一个印象，可以用哪些句子让文章变得更完整，甚至粗略的把4个选项排序。有些选项句子本身可以提供线索，让我们知道大概是在文章的前中后段。此外，篇章结构最重要的就是我们填回去的句子要和前后文连贯，在文意概念上承先启后。要请大家务必谨记前后连贯、文意通顺这8字真言。在答题的时候要记住这个原则，才能够解决任何的难题。好，我们一起看第一题。前面提到，大多数人都曾在意晚上睡得好不好。相较于只求午后疲劳消除的人，对于失眠患者来说，问题其实是比较严重的。后面一句接着，他在研究一本关于夜间作息的书的时候，他偶然发现了提到第一次睡眠的法庭记录。我们知道英文代名词不会无缘无故就出现，而这个 he 必须要有个代替指称的对象，所以我们要在选项当中找个第三人称单数的男性，而且这个人会阅读书籍做研究。因此第一题答案选 B。A historian named Roger has good news for both camps, though. Human sleep has changed over time. 一位历史学家有好消息要带给以上两种人。人类的睡眠随着时间不断在变化。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue to talk about biphasic sleep, first sleep and second sleep, 2 shifts of sleep during the night. And we're talking about the research of an historian named Roger E. Kirch. I believe he's a professor in the United States. And, of course, he's come across this concept of sleep in 2 phases, which happened a lot before the Industrial Revolution. Now, here in the second paragraph, it begins by saying, biphasic sleep, as the process is called, appears to have been widespread. It was all over the place, at least according to his research.
Yeah, he found references to the phenomenon across Europe. So he did a lot of research. As we mentioned, it was extensive. So he wasn't just looking at records from the U.S. Our records don't go back that far. The United States is kind of young. So he was looking at references that he found in Europe. And he also looked into accounts from South America and the Middle East. So this wasn't just in one particular area of the world, which is kind of interesting. Now, the period in between the rests, we're talking about the first sleep and the second sleep, was a time for duty or reflection, depending on one's means. Your means here refers to how much money you have. If you were someone of means, you'll often see that in books that you read. Oh, he was someone of means. Just means someone who has a lot of money or is wealthy, wealthier than the working class. So it depended on that as to what you did during that hour that you woke up that was between the first sleep and the second sleep. Now, if you were poor and you were a peasant or of the working class, you probably were getting up and taking care of some of your chores, some of your workload. Maybe you're on a farm and you had to go and make sure your animals were okay. Maybe you were a soldier or a guard on duty and you had to make sure that the people you were guarding were okay. So there are differences based on your social class as to what you did during that hour you were awake.
Right, so we've got peasants here, which are basically farmers, poor farmers, and again, they'd check on their animals. And then nobles, or rich people, basically, they would read or they would write until they got tired, until sleep overtook them again. So here we've got overtook, and that's the past tense of the verb to overtake, which means to pass by somebody. And that can happen when you're driving on the freeway and you want to pass a car. You can overtake the other vehicle. And again, they had different things that they did at night depending on their social class. Again, if you're peasants, you would check on your animals. But maybe the nobles would do something like reflecting. So, of course, the process of reflection just kind of means, well, looking over your life and wondering, did your business deals go well during the day? Are you planning your life out properly? Did you pay all your bills and stuff like that? Have you done your accounting? Is everything in order? So you would, reflect on things. Maybe you would read the Bible or something like that if you were religious. And again, rich people and poor people would do different things.
I wanted to mention with this verb to overtake, overtook is the past tense, of course. It can mean that something happens to you suddenly or unexpectedly. Maybe your loss of work overtook you. It was a surprise to you. Maybe you didn't plan on it. So, yeah, this sleep would just kind of suddenly come upon them and they wanted to go back to sleep. So, yeah, it definitely was different between the social classes. So, biphasic sleep in the third paragraph was known as far back as ancient Greece, based on a reference in the renowned poem, The Odyssey. If it's renowned, it's very famous. For good reason. So, however, it faded or kind of lost popularity. It went away as the Industrial Revolution took hold. Not only did artificial lighting begin to spread, but attitudes towards sleep also changed. So suddenly, we got rid of our first and second sleep, and now if you were sleeping too much, you were considered to be a lazy person. So when people were sleeping, they couldn't be exploited in factories. In the Industrial Revolution, the working class really spent most of their working lives in a factory or a mill, and they had very little free time, if any at all. So if they weren't working, they were probably sleeping, and so people would think they were lazy. To exploit someone is negative. It's to use them to your advantage, and by doing so, it hurts them to exploit. So it can be a very negative verb to use, so be careful with that. You use it in a situation where something's very unfair, someone's being a very selfish person to exploit. We have horrible people in this world that are exploiting other human beings and trafficking them, and they treat them as slaves or sexual slaves. So you can be exploited if someone's taking advantage of you and it's hurting you and it's helping them.
Right, so of course, if you were sleeping too much, that provoked accusations of laziness and time wasting. So that's what happened when we had the Industrial Revolution. People had to go off to factories to work, and it was all about making money, and it was all about being efficient and running factories and producing lots of products and making a lot of money. So, of course, if you weren't available to work, if you were sleeping too much, then you were accused of being lazy. So, of course, to accuse is the verb. That just means people say that you've done this crime. You could accuse somebody of stealing money from you. And, of course, the noun form is an accusation. You make an accusation of somebody. So, of course, there were accusations of laziness. Hey, you should be working instead of sleeping so much. And today, we must be alert to the false belief that waking up early guarantees productivity and that waking up in the middle of the night condemns you to exhaustion. So, indeed, I guess we have this false belief that is, if you wake up early, then you'll be productive. And, of course, we've talked about this before, I believe, but some schools are actually considering starting later.
Oh, really?
Because supposedly, if children get up early and go to school, their minds really aren't awake yet. So maybe they should start school later, and I think that's kind of what this is kind of saying here. We have this false belief that if we wake up early, we'll be productive, and that's probably not actually true.
Depends on the person. I'm much more productive if I get up early. But yeah, here in Taiwan, I don't think kids get enough sleep because they stay up late, going to buxiban or doing their homework. I know when I was young, my parents would make me go to bed at 8 o'clock at night.
Ooh, that's extreme.
And I'm hearing kids outside at 11 p.m. in my neighborhood. So, yeah, you just need to get enough sleep. But I wouldn't mind if kids got to go to school a little later, could sleep a little later. It'd be nice for the parents probably as well. So, yeah, so sometimes that's a false belief. Not everybody's productive if they get up early. Or here's another false belief. At times, people think that if you wake up in the middle of the night, that condemns you to exhaustion. Oh, you're never going to feel good the next day if you have to get up and you're up from 2 to 3 a.m. suddenly. If someone condemns somebody, it just means they're usually expressing disapproval of them. Oh, you're a liar. Oh, you're a cheat. And usually you do it in public, but here it just means something that's being used to say, this will be your punishment. This is a punishment if you wake up suddenly in the middle of the night. It will condemn you to exhaustion. Exhaustion is that state of extreme tiredness.
Yep, so if your job is exhausting, you will feel exhausted and you'll suffer from exhaustion. So when insomnia strikes, comfort yourself with the thought that you're in touch with ancient human practices for the night and occupy yourself quietly until sleep returns. So, in other words, don't feel bad if you wake up in the middle of the night because people woke up in the middle of the night hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. So there you have it, our discussion about biphasic sleep. Now it's time to listen to our Chinese teacher.
接着请看第二题。不过我们先回顾前面的段落。 第一段结尾提到，通过广泛的记录搜寻和其他官方文件，以及过去的流行文学和歌曲，他了解到工业社会以前的人往往在入夜以后会睡几个小时，醒来1个小时，然后再回去继续睡。再看第二题后面的句子，他在全欧洲、南美和中东的文献当中都发现有提到这个现象。由此可见，这种2阶段的睡眠相当普及，并不是局限在特定区域。所以第二题我们选 D. Biphasic sleep, as the process is called, appears to have been widespread. 2阶段睡眠似乎曾经很普遍。之后的句子便说明不止欧洲、南美、中东都有类似现象。再接着，2段休息之间的时段是工作或绅士的时间，这个要取决于个人财富的多寡。然后呢，请同学看到第3题，由于前一句已经提到，中间醒过来的这个钟头到底做什么，要看这个人的经济能力而定，所以我们可以预期作者会有进一步的说明或者举例。因此，第3题选 C. Peasants would check on their animals, while nobles might read or write until sleep overtook them again. 农民会去探视一下家畜的状况，而贵族则可能会用来读书写作，直到再有睡意为止。再来最后一段，根据著名史诗《奥德赛》，可知2阶段睡眠早在古希腊时期就有了，然而随着工业革命的兴起，逐渐消失。再请看第4题后面的句子，当人们睡觉的时候，他们就无法在工厂发挥利用价值，因此睡太多会引来懒惰和浪费时间的指控。我们从后面这个句子可以看出，睡觉这件事情是会有人议论评价的。而 A, not only did artificial lighting begin to spread, but attitudes towards sleep also changed. 不仅人造的照明设备开始普及，人们对于睡眠的态度也发生了变化。这刚好说明，因为照明设备的关系，晚上不再无法从事任何其他的事物，只好去睡觉。因此，大众对于睡眠时间多寡就开始会有评价，态度也因此转变。第4题我们可以选 A。 以上就是我们针对这一个篇章结构所做的解题讲解，谢谢大家。
We hope you learned a lot about biphasic sleep. You don't have to worry so much, I guess, if you wake up in the middle of the night for an hour or so. But we're hoping all of you out there get a good night's sleep tonight and forever. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.